Welcome to our study session. It is 5:30 on June 1st, 2023. We are meeting in the boardroom on Legacy Campus, and we are glad you're all here. Thanks for coming. We'll begin with roll call, starting with Larry.
Larry Jepson, board member.
Randall Bagley, board member.
Steve Norton, superintendent.
Roger Pulsford, board member.
Terry Rhodes, board member.
Kathy Christiansen, board member.
Chris Corcoran, board member.
Jeff Nielsen, board member.
Jared Black, business administrator.
Thank you. Randall Bagley will lead us in the pledge and mission statement this evening. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our mission is to educate students for success in a changing world.
Thank you, Randall. We have our recognition section of the agenda up first, and we're going to switch things up just a bit and start with the Ridgeline High School recognition of their debate team. And they will hear from Principal Doug Snow.
Okay, we're still waiting for the team, but I do have my assistant coach. They think when school's out they can do whatever they want.
Okay,
Can just move
so do you want us to move on?
Yeah.
John, do you have anyone here?
Me? Apparently summer hit.
Summer hit.
But I'll tell you.
Okay, you can come up. Do you have boys coming? Do you know?
We invited all the boys from both the boys soccer and the boys lacrosse.
Okay.
They both took state this year and had amazing wins. It was interesting when our lacrosse coach
Will you use the microphone, please?
not loud enough.
No.
Yeah, got the
All
whole wide
those
world
people
out there.
listening.
So just starting the lacrosse playoff, our coach said to me, he said, the boys are right where we need to be. And I kind of looked at him crosswise because they were going into lacrosse, 6th place into the tournament. And they had to play Ridgeline, who had beat them twice, and Skyview, who had beat them twice, and ended up taking state. And, it's a fun opportunity when things come together, and very fortunate for the boys and the coaches, and great to be able to see them chuck everything in the air. It's like it's raining helmets and all kinds of stuff. And anyways, so both the boys soccer and lacrosse ended up state champions, and great year for both those teams. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. That's a good. That's a fabulous end for the first year as principal there, I think. Okay. Doug.
So this is Julie Major. She's our assistant debate coach. Cody Scott, our head coach, had a death in the family. He's out of town, has to be excused. And we did invite members of the debate team. And so they're a fantastic group. I've really enjoyed so 2 years in a row they've won the state championship in the region. And they had not beaten Logan in the region for years. And the last 2 years they beat them in the region debate tournament, and then just made a tough run. I don't think they took anything below first all year long in every tournament. They just had a fantastic year. They're a funny group of kids. They're so fun to rub shoulders with, and they're so driven. And of course, they're very sharp. But last year, and I didn't do debate in high school, but I've sure enjoyed these kids. It's hard to go to a debate tournament and cheer them on, so I'd bring them donuts in the morning, because that is something I know about, is the power of a good chocolate glazed donut. So they were just so fun to be around, just such great kids, and worked hard. And you could tell the emotion when they won the championship. It meant something to them. It's really, really neat to watch these kids that have worked so hard, and that really, really mattered to them to be successful. And Cody and Julie have done such a good job with those kids, and they've just been a fantastic group. I would also like to congratulate Green Canyon, their coach. Troy Oldham's a classmate of mine. He's just a classy individual, and their coach, and so that couldn't have happened to a better guy. But anyway, so congratulations to our debate kids. They're just a wonderful group. And the coaches, Julie and Cody, are also the golf coaches. So he helps her with golf and she helps him with debate. It's quite an unusual partnership, but they just do a fantastic job. So I appreciate them.
Thank you, Julie. Would you like to say anything?
No, I'm not as well spoken as the debaters. So.
Right there. All right, last but not least on the recognition agenda, Superintendent Norton.
Thank you. If it's okay, I'll stand over here because I have a group of individuals up here that I love and appreciate, and I have some really dear people sitting in the audience. And in January, we started a program of honoring people and corporations or businesses that had been super supporters of education. And we've had some wonderful evenings honoring and celebrating companies and individuals who have given of their means to help our district be a better place. But tonight, I wanted to take the opportunity before I leave this district to pay my respect to a group of individuals that over the years have had a tremendous impact on what's gone on in this district. And I'm talking about school board members. And I'm talking about people who gave up the most important commodity they have in their life, and that's time, to help set policy and provide leadership for our school district. And I had the privilege of working with 25 school board members in the 27 years that I've been here. And 3 of them are deceased at this point. I look forward to meeting with them somewhere in eternity and be able to give them the thank you too that they deserve. But I'm just going to, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to just read through the list of individuals that I've had the privilege of working with. And at least 3 of the ones that were instrumental in bringing me here are here tonight, and I want you to know how much I appreciate the fact that you took a chance. And Jackie White was on the board when I came, and she has since passed. Dr. John Bailey, and he's here tonight. Brent Parker is here tonight. Kenneth Wade, Dennis Jackson, and he's here tonight, and Bruce Darley, and he has passed away, were the first board members that I had the privilege of working with. Tamara Grange, nice to see you here. Richard Knight, Brian Leishman, Anthony Hall, Susan Madsen, Allison Saunders, and then we went to a 7-member board. So we got to have the opportunity of working with 7 individuals when we passed the 10,000 student mark. And from that point on, we had 7. So Guy Ray Pulsifer, Jonathan Jenkins, Alan Grunig, nice to see you here tonight. Richard Knight, Bart Baird, I think just walked in. And thank you, Bart, for being here. Garrick Hall moved from here and went down to Levan and was very active in Levan in civic responsibilities, and he passed away not long ago, unexpectedly, with a heart condition. Kathy Christiansen. Now we're going to get into the wonderful individuals I have the privilege of working with right now. Kathy Christiansen, Terry Rhodes, Roger Pulsford, Randall Bagley, Jeffrey Nelson, Larry Jepson, and Chris Cochran. So I'm just going to tell you from a social studies teacher perspective, there is no better demonstration of democracy than school boards. And when you think about it, there is no greater, I say it every time I've talked in graduation, counted as the greatest of virtues to faithfully educate the children of others. And so we trust, as parents, our kids to teachers who go in the classroom every day and teach about this great country. But this country's got it right. We trust teachers to take our most valuable commodity and take them in the classroom. But we also need input from the public and from parents as to what we're going to teach. And school boards do a marvelous job of making sure that they reflect the values of the community. And it's just been a wonderful, positive experience working with so many great board members. And as a token of appreciation, we have a wonderful art teacher up at Skyview, and he has ties back to the little tiny community of Panaca, Nevada. He's a Lee, and there are Lees, Wadsworths, and Matthews in Panaca. And you'll need to know, if you're interested in LDS church history, when they drew the line, these were saints that had transferred, moved out of St. George to a little tiny town out in the middle of the desert, but it had a spring. And that spring provided water. And when they drew the line between Nevada and Utah, they ended up 20 miles inside of Nevada. And like good saints, they refused to pay taxes to Reno. And so they sent a posse down. And then the church said, come home, come back to Utah. And so like good saints, most of them stayed right there in Panaca. But Lester's family was one, traces their roots, and they did leave. And if you want just a little church history of the LDS Church, Harold B. Lee, his parents did leave Panaca and settled in Clifton, Oxford area, and that's where he grew up. Interesting how it all interacts. I just want you to know that this is a picture of Utah State. I know I've got at least one BYU grad up here, and there are other pictures. We've had a different one every time we've awarded them. So I'm going to invite Terry to come down and help me pass out awards. If you get a Utah State one and you know you just can't hang it up in your house, you come and talk to me and we'll straighten it out, okay? All right. So I'm just going to go down the list. We'll start with you old timers. Dr. John Bailey, come on up. And I'm going to have you stay up here. Come on up. I'm going to have you stay up here so we can get a group picture, if that's okay. Okay, Brent Parker, another seasoned veteran of the wars. Dennis Jackson, please come on up. Tamara Grange, please come on up. Anthony Hall, please come on up. Anthony, I'm going to give you an extra one that maybe can find its way down to Levan and can hang in that house.
That would be great.
Thank you. All right. Alan Grunig. Bart Baird. Okay, now I want you guys to come down from up there. Kathy Christiansen. Roger Pulsifer. Randall Bagley. Jeff Nelson. Larry Jepson. And Chris Cochran. Okay, we don't really have a lot of tall ones, so I don't know how we're going to take this picture. Some of you are going to have to come, make your way to the back and just space yourself so we can get a picture of everybody.
Those of us that are young enough to kneel, should we kneel?
You could, yeah, yeah. There's not much help here to get you up though if you go down. So, okay. There are in my box. There are more pictures. So let me have that one, and I'll get you another one out of the car.
Well, there's one back there.
Okay, got it. All right. Okay. All right.
Did you say Terry's name?
And Terry, if I didn't say it, she was down helping me. Yeah. All right. So let's get a picture. Now we can give them a big round of applause. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. And again, appreciate you. Thank you. We sure do. Thank you.
Get down there to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, bud. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kathy. Okay, you got the two?
Got two of them.
Okay, thank you, bud. They will really appreciate it. You're welcome. Congratulations. Thank you. Thanks, partner, for coming.
I'm just going to steal your microphone for a second.
Okay, all right. We had the microphone get stolen, so.
I've had the privilege of living in Cache Valley for 50 years now, and I've had the opportunity to serve with several of these wonderful board members and in several other opportunities for public service. And I can sincerely say, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of all of the board members here, certainly for myself, one of the proudest things that I treasure is the opportunity to have appointed Steve as superintendent of the school district 27 years ago. And I think on behalf of all of us, we sincerely thank you for 27 years of wonderful service, and I certainly wish you the best, and all of our children who have gone to school here under your administrative leadership. Certainly lives are wonderful and blessed and better for having had you here. We wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. That is the end of the recognition portion of our agenda, and we're moving on to public input. And if you want to escape before we start the business portion of our meeting, this is the best time to do it.
Some of you older ones, go slow through the door. Take care.
All right, we have no public input this evening, so we'll move on to our reports agenda. First up, we have the counseling review presented by Dave Swenson.
I'm not sure if I really need that screen, but do you guys, do you have that on your screen? Okay, yeah. Good enough. Well, again, my name's Dave Swenson. You probably know that already. And it's really my pleasure to be here to just talk about our counseling program and really for it to be in compliance with the state on counseling, and part of our assurance is that we come to the board for a board adoption, and also to get your approval for the counseling program, and to let you know that we've met the requirements. And so you've seen this, I'm sure, before, and so I'm just going to go through each slide briefly, and then I've got two schools here representing Mountain Crest, or we've got two schools here, Mountain Crest and North Cache. And from Mountain Crest, we have Dave Clark, one of our counselors, Angela Bowler, who's going to help me on the slides here, and Amy Nelson, who will present their data project with us. We also have Annette Bowler that will present their data project from North Cache. Also, we have Assistant Principal Denise Mortensen, soon to be principal at Mountain Crest. And her man cub, is it TJ? TJ? Yeah, TJ's here. Yeah, so he's got the cat. Anyway, so we welcome them here. So it is that it's necessary for the school districts for our school district to meet the requirements of the annual review process, and also to reaffirm a commitment for us, the district, for the PCCRs, which is our planning and college career readiness, the process, and also your approval to continue with the financial support that we have. The next slide is the comprehensive guidance program competencies fall on 4 different areas: academic learning development, which that's really a lot of our counselors' time is put into that to make sure that our kids are on track to graduate and follow through. Also, life and career development, multicultural, global citizens development, and also the personal social development of our students at the school. Let's see, go back one more. I think it was at program competencies. Let's see, go 2 more. Maybe I'm let's see. Go down another one. Academic, one more. Where did I? Okay, let's go back to that. I thought I want to go back again. Back again. Sorry. Back again. One more time. Hang on here. Let me see what. Boy, it was funny how. I apologize on this. I am missing a slide. Okay, well, so on this, the academic learning development, I just have a slide here that gives some bullet points of each one of them. For example, on the academic side, with our students, as they on the academic side, to make sure that as our counselors that they acquire the knowledge and skills that contribute to effective learning. They understand the relationship of a school experience and academic achievement, both experience and achievement. And also they complete the coursework that provides a wide range of opportunities for the kids, just not only the required classes, but also elective classes. That's that academic part. The career and life development, to become aware and explore the world of work, and to use strategies to achieve future life and career goals. The multicultural development part, as some of the bullet points, is to develop the ability to evaluate and to approach life as a contributing citizen in our global community. And then that personal social development is to develop the skills to understand and appreciate self and others. Learn to set and achieve goals, make decisions, and solve problems. And seems lately that a lot of our counselors put a lot of time into those efforts with the challenges that our students are having right now. The components, there's so the that is really weird. Why because I looked this up and I went through the whole thing. I don't know what to see. Okay, go hit that button again. Go. Do they have the time the time allocations? That's really weird. It's jumping. Well, okay. The next one was supposed to be a time allocations. In that individual student planning at the middle school, it's 33 to 45% of the middle school should spend their time on that individual student planning. At the high schools, it's 45 to 55%. I will get this slide and I'll send these to you because I think the next board that you will make the approval, but so you can review these. I apologize. I don't know what's happening. The guidance curriculum, 25 to 35% of their time in the middle school, 15 to 25% in high school. The responsive service dropout prevention, that responsive service about 25 to 30% in the middle school, 15 to 20% in the high school. And system supports and non-guidance, 10 to 15% in both areas. You'll see that the individual student planning is a little higher in the high school, and the curriculum guidance and responsive services a little less. That's because I think they're in the high school just because they are getting ready to graduate, making sure all the requirements and those kinds of things are being met. The next slide is to qualify for the comprehensive guidance funds at the school. That obviously they implement the plan and college readiness, career readiness, and policies that are consistent with the law. And they do that a lot with individual, where they're meeting with students and do their PCCRs to plan the best opportunity for those kids to succeed in whatever areas they do. They also, to qualify, as we complete a yearly data project, which those schools, that's due by the 15th of this month. And so you'll hear two of our schools of their data projects that they did this last year. And then complete a performance review conducting by a team from the USBE every 6 years, or complete an internal review every third year. This was kind of cool this year because we went through this 6th-year review, and I was able to sit in with the state on all 8 of our schools on this 6th-year review, where they fill out their self-evaluations and they also complete all the assurances of that. And all middle schools and high schools participated in this past year, and all passed with accolades. It was interesting to the person that conducted this from the state is a younger counselor who'd been in the counseling schools for a little while, and I think this might have been her 2nd year going through these reviews. At the end, she just complimented how district-wide, how competent our schools are and how united they are. In fact, they were going to use one of our schools' evidence boxes as an example for the other state to have in place when they do these 6-year reviews. And I kind of took it from her language that she didn't see the unity in other districts like they do here, and it was really fun to see. It was you would have been so proud. I was too. And this is my first year even though I work with counselors at the high school level for so many years, but to sit in and see this process go through, I was like proud as a peacock, and I wasn't really doing anything, and these guys were. It was a good experience, and so they've all passed. In 3 years they'll do an internal review. Sometimes that's our own schools, or a lot of times we've gone out to like Box Elder, and they'll come in and do a review. But every 6 years the state, and we just completed that this year. And then to meet the 7 qualifying standards of competencies, and that should be the next slide. Yeah, and those seven standards are each student, data effectiveness and program improvement, the PCCRs, career literacy, collaborative classroom instruction, systematic approach to dropout prevention, and alignment. So those, and they had evidences of those when they went through that review. And then the assurances, some of the assurances that we have to comply with too, is a board adoption. That's why I'm here tonight, that you'll adopt that, our comp guidance program. Now, okay, so so the new state program for 2024 and 2025. So they are looking at adopting a new program starting next year, and they're looking at it different than what they have right now. If you look at the criteria of our current program in the state, there's about 80 different subcategories that you look at. They're trying to simplify things and look at revamping the program to make it more simple. And one of those things that they're looking at is aligning it with the Portrait of a Graduate from the state of Utah. And those components, those three components in the graduate or the Portrait of a Graduate actually falls in line, and there's actually about 17 of those little criterias instead of 84 that makes it more simple. So what's kind of neat too is that we have two members on our district that have been nominated to be on that work group committee. And so the whole idea is working this summer and the fall. So next March they will present that to the school, the USBE, to have a program review. So you'll probably see some different changes maybe next year on that. Feel free at any time to ask some questions. Let's see that next slide. Okay, one of the things about funding. So this past year, they have for this coming year, they've allocated $12.9 million statewide to the secondary comprehensive counseling guidance. We received $415,000 plus for this year. Last year we had $390,000 that we did, and how we break that down is we first of all looked at our personnel costs. Well, actually, I guess it's indirect costs are taken off the top. Then we look at our personnel, and the personnel is not our counselors. It's the parapros who run our career centers. We have 8 of them, and you'll see on the next slide where that's broken down. And that costs us, especially, and that's including the 8%, if possible, that if I had to kind of include the possibility if there's an 8% increase, that costs us about $280,000 a year. You take the indirect costs out and you put a little bit on reserve, then that $91,000 then is allocated out to the schools, and it's based on the number of students that they have, and then each of the schools have that money to work with on personnel, salary, benefits, training, equipment, and things like that. So that will be our next year's budget that we're planning for. Next slide. We have eight schools. The number of counselors is the same from last year. We're dedicating to 29.5 FTEs. We take 20. Most of that comes out of the general budget. We do take 1 1/3 FTE out of CTE budget. Counseling does fall under CTE as far as budget. As far as the budget is concerned, and you'll see that the red is the broken down number of teachers or FTEs that we have per school based on numbers. Also in there is we also have some interns, and that differs from year to year. And you can kind of see that they have a 190-day contract, and they work a little bit into the summer and come in a little bit before school starts. The state ratio is 350 to 1. We are at 331 to 1 with 9,777 students that they're predicting. And those paraprofessionals, that money that I talked about, are we have a 6-hour a day, 180-day parapros that work in our career center, and that's where most of that personnel money comes from.
Dave, before you move on, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do the red numbers for FTEs directly correlate with the number of counselors in each of those schools? Mm-hmm. So like Ridgeline has 5.5 counselors? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. 1 FTE, full-time equivalent, means
right.
one full-time teacher.
I know, but sometimes FTE equivalents are used in other ways, and
Yeah.
it doesn't exactly equate to bodies.
Right. This it does, so,
Okay.
yeah. And the ones that have a half, for example, we have the half at Ridgeline. She's a half-time teacher, and then half-time she does counseling. And some of the, like at North Cache, we have a half-time intern that's working on they're paid half-time with an FTE, but also they might use some other money in the trust lands or Vista that they do. So,
Okay. All right. Thank
good
you.
question. Thanks.
I have a question too. So, do all of the high schools and middle schools have social workers as well?
Yes, well, let's see.
And do they fit
so
into
we
this?
We have what the yes, we do. Some have. Actually, I think Green Canyon does not, because the one it's the what's the Project Aware. Thank you, Project Aware. That's funded by Kurt, allows us to have. And that's different. That's funded part from the state and from a grant that we have will probably will go away this next year. So we've got to be looking at ways to have high schools use some funds, whether it's TSSA or we've been able to use a little bit of ESSER, but that project grant kind of goes away. Project Aware will, and I think we've had it for 5 years, but so we are looking to see what we need to do and we're working with Kurt Jenkins, who's over that, to kind of plan for that, because it's needed. And
So this is kind of a follow-up question on that. Because you have the social workers, which I think is important and that we need, and yes, we need to figure out how to fund that, does that help relieve some of the stress or whatever on the counselors?
I'm going to let them kind of address a little bit of that. I know that, especially last year being a high school principal, I know the counselors there at one time said, instead of maybe funding, I'll take a few more students if we can have a social worker here to help take on the heavier stuff that they do. And because really they're not as trained in the therapy, well, not really therapy, but also the some of the critical needs where they can kind of keep their staying in compliance and helping the academic needs and things like that. But let me ask you guys about
They're a great connection to the community and to therapists and to other services that sometimes we don't have the time to connect families with. But that's where they help.
So is their focus mostly social mental then, would you say, in the school?
In our school.
Completely, yeah. It's not
Okay.
Suicide prevention.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And but also they have the resources to also talk to parents to get them out in the community to have other help there too. So yeah, it does take I think they keep pretty busy. So.
Follow up. They're always following up, but sometimes we don't have that capability.
Yeah.
And we've seen a big, not decrease, but increase of support from our community because we have someone following up all the time.
Well, I'm behind you 100% on having that trained help in all of the schools. Do the elementary schools have any social workers, or do they just have counselors?
They just have counselors. I don't know about the social workers.
Yeah, too bad we don't have. Well, that's another day, another subject.
Yeah, it's something that we really need to address and to look at, and hopefully, I know what I just heard. One school district is moving their. They're bringing their ratio down to 220, which would mean if it was in our district, we'd have to hire 10 more counselors. Now, I don't know where the funding's coming, but they just see the need there to individualize and just to have a little less load. So there's things like that. We're hoping that legislation can, that so more money can be allocated. And one of the things that I know is a struggle a little bit too is even if they allocate that, trying to find social workers. I know at Skiving, a few people, or at Green Canyon, we've had them leave to make twice as much money in the private sector. So that's also an issue, is trying to find social workers who will come and work at that salary. So
Thank you.
anyway, thank you. Then just the next one is, I think, continual improvements. We're always looking at how we try to improve every year. They take a career interest survey. We're career pathways. If you look on the very last, I'll show you the last slide. Scholarship eligibility applications. We're always looking at ways how we can get more scholarships out. Every student has time with a counselor, trying to make sure they take that time, especially with our seniors, especially around graduation time, that they are meeting all the needs that they need there. Always trying to be more of instead of being reactive, more proactive and preventable things that we need to do to help students. And I think that's a really big key there, is how do we help prevent more than react? And that's, I think, adult relationships, positive relationships, creating a climate and a culture that students feel safe. Trying to always look at our counseling and student ratio, making sure that, we're going to, if we start crossing that 350 line, then we'll bring some more counselors on when we need to. And then also how we can also help in support with elementary at times if there's some, and they're not afraid to move to each school if a tragedy happens. I've experienced 2 suicides as a high school principal at Green Canyon High School, and to have counselors from the other schools be there. It's almost like they drop what they do. They come in, and as a principal, that's very, very assuring. And it's a team effort. The last slide, is the pathways. We'll do the data one. Let's keep going a little bit farther. This is the career pathways. There's 13 clusters from the state. We try to get as many as we can in our pathways, and try to get as many students to be complete CT pathway completers. Our counselors help in that part. Let's go back a slide. This is the names of the people that we have, that corresponds with the FTEs, and who we have, and they are remarkable. I had the opportunity. We meet on a monthly basis as a district counseling team every first Thursday of every month, and it's just where we try to provide professional development. They also meet as cones, the north end, the south end. They also try to work with the vertical articulation. I happened to sit in yesterday, just pop in on a meeting with North Cache, Skyview, and Green Canyon, moving kids there and talking about each of those kids, those freshmen, as they come in. So they're great at collaborating. This time, I'd like to see if we could have Annette, if you start with our North Cache, their data project this past year. If they could, she could come present briefly of what they've done, and then we'll have Amy Nelson, one of our counselors at Mountain Crest. And I'll pull up, I think I've got your...
Hopefully this form works. The state has a very specific form. They like to have our reporting for our data projects done on, and I thought it would be beneficial for you to see this. But before I describe that, I just want to tell you thank you. We love being school counselors. We love working with the kids, and we are so appreciative to get the funding sent right to our schools so that we can determine how best to use it to enhance our program and serve our students. This year, North Cache worked on our data project is from our Counseling Standards number 1, which involves identifying and analyzing student populations according to diversity and services in the areas of access, attainment, and achievement. So this year, we took an extensive look at our enrollment in our different courses when we look specifically at our minority populations, and realized that in the 2021-2022 school year, we had approximately 9% of our 8th grade students were listed as Hispanic, but only 2% of our extended math, which is our honors math program in the 8th grade, only 2% of those students were Hispanic. And so our goal this year was to really work to make sure that we had students properly identified, to make sure that we got information to those students and to the parents to let them know about the benefits of being in an honors program. So we did different activities throughout the fall, including meeting with students individually, sending home information to the parents, working with our parent liaison, making sure that information was sent home in Spanish. Monthly, we did some fun activities with our Hispanic students, working with them, trying to build some connections, helping introduce them to some successful people in the community, doing some team building activities with them, and also working on being part of the PLC process with our 7th and 8th grade math departments and helping them be aware of the need to really make sure we are allowing all of our students, especially our minority students, the same access to our programs. So we changed our registration process to try and better incorporate these opportunities for our students. And as we completed registration for this upcoming school year, sorry, my paper is super tiny. Our goal is that we would increase by 2%, and we ended up with 7.8% of our registered extended Math 8 students for next year are identified as Hispanic, and we have 8% of our total registered 8th grade students for next year are Hispanic. So we were really pleased. As we met with these students individually, it was really fun to be able to see kids that haven't ever felt like they excelled, and to be able to spend some time individually with them and encourage them and see opportunities for them to dream and grow and pursue that. So, great opportunity. Any questions?
Just a comment. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, you don't see the needle move that significantly that quickly very often, so I just want to compliment you. And,
thank you. It's fun when you can get them to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have a question because I just made the connection with you and Theo.
Yes.
And so I haven't seen him here with you before. And is this a date night for you?
This is a date night tonight, yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Way to go, Theo.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have Dave, Angela, and Amy here. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit more so we can see.
Okay, yep, perfect. So I'm Amy Nielsen. Again, we have Dave and Angela here to support. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background before I get going on our data project. So at Mountain Crest, we run a program called Inside and Out. Inside and Out is our suicide prevention, anti-bullying, and character ed program. Once a week, a video is shown to the school, and those videos highlight different things that students can learn from. One of those topics that we discuss is QPR, which is Question, Persuade, Refer. Question, Persuade, Refer is a suicide prevention program where students learn how to recognize the warning signs of suicide, and then they question, persuade, and refer their friends to get help to a trusted adult. Many of you are familiar with Hope Squad, and Hope Squad partnered with QPR to teach their Hope Squad students how to be the gatekeepers and the eyes and the ears of the school to get students help. At Mountain Crest, we don't use Hope Squad to teach QPR. Instead, we use our Inside and Out program, and we teach QPR to the entire school. Our idea is that everyone at Mountain Crest is a gatekeeper and that everyone can watch out for each other, and so we wanted to teach it as a school-wide approach. The QPR mission is to reduce suicidal behaviors and save lives by providing practical and proven suicide prevention training. So we went with that approach, and we teach Inside and Out and QPR as part of this Inside and Out program. So our data project was to see how many kids know, since we have a school-wide approach, how many kids in our school know what QPR is and how to use it. And Our goal was to have 100% of our student population know it. In an ideal world, that would be wonderful if everybody knew how to help with their friends and the signs to look for. So before we ran our baseline data, we actually, at the beginning of the school year, the first few days of school, we have assemblies with the specific grade levels. We taught each of the grade levels about QPR and what it stood for and how to use it. And then a few weeks later, we ran our baseline data. Our baseline data showed that 93% of our students understood how to define QPR, and 88% knew what to do if they were concerned about a student. So right off the bat, we were pretty happy with our baseline results. We were happy that kids listened to us at the assembly. But we still wanted to run some things through the year and then take data again at the end of the year. Some things that we did during the year, just to keep this on kids' minds, is we also celebrate what's called an upstander. So somebody who stands up for one another, looks out for kids, and is kind of aware of others. We do lunchtime activities to reinforce QPR as a counseling department. We showed the weekly videos. Every Tuesday, a teacher would show the video, and we would choose whether it was on anti-bullying or QPR, or there's just a whole wide variety. So every Tuesday, we'd show those videos. We have QPR and Safe UT posters in our lunchrooms and in the classrooms. I know the district offers QPR training to families, and so that's helpful for us as well, that families can also be taught the same thing that their students are learning. Then we did our results. We ran it in April. We asked the kids what QPR stands for and got our results back. Our results showed that 90% of our students could define QPR and 80% knew what to do if they were concerned about a student. So our results did indicate a slight drop. We had to understand that our numbers changed throughout the year. Maybe not every kid was at our beginning assembly, or we didn't get back every survey that we were hoping. So we were still pretty happy, though, with the beginning and end results, that still our idea of teaching a school-wide approach was still effective, even at the end of the year with 90% of the students knowing. We asked students about this program and got a little feedback. They says, I like how the discussions help me see other points of view. Sometimes our Inside and Out videos every Tuesday will have like a discussion point, like, what did you think? How did that make you feel? They're not graded or anything, but just to get the kids thinking. It says it helps me know how to help others. They help me realize everyone is fighting their own battle. And it shows that no one is alone. So we know that it's touching some kids' lives and hearts on what they need to do to help others and even themselves. We as counselors, we even noticed that after showing like a specific video on QPR or suicide awareness, someone would pop in our office and have a concern about a friend that day. Or we'd get a Safe UT tip, which is something that we can follow up on that day. So we were happy with seeing those results, because there were some very specific incidences that we would not have known about had they not come in. And they specifically told us, hey, we came in because we saw this video and we're concerned. So overall, we're happy with how many students know what QPR is and how to handle a situation. In the future, to improve the program, we want to look at getting more student and teacher buy-in. So talk with teachers and students about how we can improve it, and then kind of get their feedback and go from there. Does anyone have any questions?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I will. I don't know if moving that from the PowerPoint to the Drive missed a couple slides, but I'll email those that PowerPoint to Emily tomorrow and have that sent out to each of you if you want to review that, and then just need your approval on moving forward, or your assurance that we're meeting all the standards. And let me just share. They have a SAT meeting every Tuesday. Well, the high schools do. I think the middle school's on the Tuesday usually. If you were to come in, and the SAT meeting is, we call it SAT, SAT, Student Assistant Team Meeting. This is where the counselors, administration, sometimes social workers, sometimes interns, administration is in there. And I've often thought as I sat in there and using data, kids are talked about, the kids at risk. If any parent was a fly on the wall, to see them talk about their kids and what they're trying to do, I don't know, when you talk about all the things that are kind of the critical things that people, or the negative things that people talk about in education right now, just go sit in one of those SAT meetings, and it gets pretty emotional about these kids and making plans for these kids and finding places for these students to go, get remediation, get help. They track these kids, and it's a meeting totally focused on students and those that are struggling, as well as kids how to improve, and from attendance, from grades, the emotional, and then how they divvy these students out and assign them to either administrators or counselors to follow through. I am so proud of what they do, and they don't get the recognition that they do, but just they do this kind of this quiet goodness that they do on a regular basis, and it happens in the school. So I've always considered, when I was a principal, that they're kind of like my third assistant principal, the counselors. So anyway, kudos to them. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Does anyone have any other questions for Dave?
I don't. Just thanks to all the counselors. Your job is never ending. And you are overworked and probably underappreciated, but know that I really appreciate what you do and we on the board do. It's a hard job, but you probably don't know how many people you have affected in a positive way, but there have been many.
Thank you. Well, it takes all of us working together. Next up, we have the negotiation agreements with our employee associations, presented by Kirk McRae.
As you can see, we have incredible employees in our district. You've seen just a small sampling of that tonight. So one of our highest priorities is taking care of them, and doing that through compensation and benefits. I'm not going to have Dave run any technology for me, so I'll just keep it with the copies of the agreements that I think you already have as part of your packets. Okay. I am happy to report that we have met with all of our employee groups. All of them have ratified the agreements that are in your packets for a compensation benefit package for next year. This is always initiated at the legislative level, where our legislature looks at our funding for the upcoming year and provides allocations for us to take care of our employees. This was a very good year. The funding came in a unique way. We've seen it a couple of times in years past, but it came in two sources. One is the WPU, which is the normal funding route that we usually get our increases. And the second was in a educator salary adjustment that was a line item specifically for delineated educators. We were able to leverage both sources of those incomes or revenues to give our employees across the board the highest cost of living increase that I've seen in my time here. The components of the tentative agreements that you have in front of you, there's three that are really the same for each group. Are first the COLA, which is the cost of living allowance or increase, and that was an 8% increase across the board. We were able to equalize or figure out what the educator salary adjustment was for our teachers, and then use that as a reference point to determine the funding increases for our other employees. And I want to give a lot of credit to our teachers who understood that this could have been a year where they felt or could have demanded more, but they understand that we are a team, we are a family, and that every employee group, our support personnel and our administrators, all work together to make our school successful. So again, cost of living increase across the board was 8%. On insurance, our insurance through Surest is it's a very rich plan. It's a plan that our employees like, but it is expensive. And to provide the same plan next year, the cost of that plan went up 18%. We were reluctant to take money off the table, at least 18%. That would be a money that would not go to cost of living allowances. So one of the agreements that we reached with our employee groups is that each employee group or benefit eligible employees would pay 5% of their health care premium. Now you might be wondering, why is that only 5%? It's the first time we've had an employee contribution, and I would say that most of you, if you have plans outside of the school district, you know that it's very normal to pay part of the contribution for that premium. So our employees are going to be paying 5% of that premium starting September 1st. That's a small percentage, but by doing that, we were able to reduce the money that we needed to put towards health insurance. We did add 15% to that funding level. We think that that's a healthy increase and will put us in a better position next year. And then the last component is step and lane changes. Every one of our salary schedules do have step increments and lane changes based on different criteria. There are real costs to fund those step increases, and these agreements fund those step and lane changes for next year. There's a couple of minor language items in our classified and our teacher, but I think you can see that, and like I said, I think fairly minor. So those are the agreements that we're going to ask you to approve at our next board meeting. We had Kathy and Roger help us on our negotiation teams this year. Thank you for your help. But do you have any questions for me?
No, thank you so much for all of your work to make those happen so well. And thank you, Kathy and Roger.
And the classified wanted to make sure the board knew they appreciated. That's what they commented about yesterday. They were very happy with it. So.
Yep. Everyone feels very grateful. It's a historic year. This is a very good year. So thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kirk. The board meeting schedule you have on the, does anyone see any issues that we didn't notice before? There's a change. In September, we won't meet the first Thursday because of the the USBA Leadership Conference. And in January, we won't meet the first week, but the second week because of the USB annual conference. And in April, because of the NSBA annual conference, we won't meet in the first week. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as you would expect. Any questions or concerns?
Now, the letter we got, only 3 of us can go to the one in September. Is that right?
Yes, but there will be, I would guess that I don't count in those 3.
So it'd be 4.
Because I have to be there anyway. And I would guess that anybody who wants to go can go, because there are other school boards in the state who don't attend. So, and Jeff already told me that he's interested in attending, so.
I would like to also.
Okay, Roger.
Mm-hmm. I do too. I like to go to that one.
Okay. And moving on to the budget update. Jared is going to give us a brief overview that will change probably tomorrow.
Possibly even tonight. I've uploaded into Board Docs a board budget overview that you can look through on your own time if you'd like to. I'm not going to go through every piece of it, but just comment on a few highlights. At this time of year, in fact, one of the board members who was here earlier, one of the former board members, as she walked by, commented to me, "You're the new BA. This is a really busy time of year for you, isn't it? Because of the budget." So they remember. But we're both finishing up the current year budget to prepare a final version for that, as well as what we would call a preliminary or a tentative budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So those are kind of 2 separate processes that we're going through. We actually just received at the end of last week our final budget numbers from USBE for the year. Those are adjusted towards the end of the year because some of the funding formulas take into account how much we've received from property tax revenues. So they wait as long as possible to count up those revenues and then make those adjustments. So we're just getting some of our final data to put together the FY23 final budget. But it looks good. It's probably important to know by rule or law, I'm not sure which, but we're required to budget more than we have in actual revenues or expenditures. So that's really, we try to be as close as possible, but I'm always going to build in just a little bit of flexibility in the budget numbers just to make sure that our actual numbers by the end of June still fit within what we've budgeted for. I commented to President Rhodes the other day, and maybe we'll share this with you as well. At the next meeting when we present the budget for approval, I'd like to ask for the board to approve the final 2023 budget, but with approval or authority from the board for me to make year-end adjustments. Because the reality is we'll approve that on the 15th, and on the 16th of June we'll already have some new information that we've got to put into that budget. For example, last year USB sent us a new program on June 29th, I believe, that we had to include in the end of year budget. So the budget you approved on June 15th obviously didn't include that, but those are just, there's a few things like that we've got to throw in. So I would just like to request that type of a motion in 2 weeks so that I feel like I'm working with authority from the board when I make those year-end adjustments. Hopefully that makes sense. For next year's budget, things look good. The things that Mr. McCrae just reviewed related to negotiations, we are building into the budget for next year. Obviously, the lion's share of our budget goes to salaries and benefits for our employees. And so we worked through all of those individual budgets, applying the 8% increase in steps and lanes and other projected costs. The WPU value next year will be $4,280, which is a 6% increase. Our actual total cost per student is closer to between $8,000 and $9,000 when you take into account all of our expenditures, but we certainly appreciate that WPU for each student in our district. As far as FTE increases for next year, we're projecting about 6 additional teacher FTEs, so the growth is a little bit slower than it has been the last several years, but we are still seeing growth, which is good. Statewide, the projections are that within, I think, 3 or 4 years, student enrollment is expected to start decreasing actually statewide, but we're still seeing some increase in our district here, so we're glad about that. Having come from a district where we had declining enrollment for 20 straight years, it's been a pleasant surprise for me to work in a growing enrollment environment. One quick note on assessed valuation. So our property tax numbers are almost always the final piece of our budget that we kind of plug into the equation. We usually get them right around this time of year. In fact, last year it was June 1st when the county emailed me and said property tax numbers are in. I checked just before the meeting one more time. I'm checking every day right now, but those numbers are not in yet. But we are expecting the assessed valuation in the county to grow from about $9 billion to about $10 billion. So $1 billion in property value growth in the county. If you remember, last year we had growth of about $2 billion. We went from 7 to 9 billion. So just in 2 years, the property tax valuation in the county is going from about 7 billion to 10 billion. That's pretty remarkable growth in the property tax. And once we get those numbers in, we can kind of finalize the budget and then have it ready for you by the 15th. Any questions from any of you?
I'm just curious. It's been a few years since we had a board vote to increase the levy. And given that property values have gone up like $1 billion, I mean, how much money is being left on the table by our not kind of bringing that in line with what the law allows?
Great question. I don't have a specific number. I'd have to do some playing on Excel, but it's a significant amount. Some districts have taken the approach, and there's even been talk statewide of doing the same thing of essentially freezing rates. And in one case statewide, we've done that. But some districts have taken the approach of freezing their rate to essentially capture extra revenues each year as the property valuation grows in the county. I believe our last truth in taxation hearing was, it's been a few months since I've looked, but I'm thinking it's been about 5 years. And historically, in cash, we have done a truth in taxation to increase our voted or board levy because we have to have a certain local effort in order to qualify for the state voted and board guarantee amounts. And so we've increased that to kind of keep up with what our local effort has to be. But I wouldn't want to put a number out there without calculating it, Chris, but it's a significant amount.
But you've also got to remember it is a tax increase. It has to be sold that way, and people will know it. And you're going to be going out asking for a bond issue, and so I would just, my final recommendation would be not this year.
I'm not proposing that we do anything. All I'm saying is it's actually, I think it's been about 4 years, because it was right after I joined the board that we had the last Truth in Taxation meeting.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, property values have ballooned. So I'm not suggesting that I'm, saying that that's something we should do right now. But what I am saying is we should be at least aware of that. What revenue are we leaving off the table by not, aligning what's legally allowed? Even though I understand that there is a political side to this, I also feel like, this is a law that was passed by a majority of Utah voters many years ago. And so they've given us the right to pursue that, if we deem that it's fit. But, my heavens, when property values are going from $9 to $10 billion in the span of a year, we should be doing a little bit of arithmetic as a board, because clearly, given the growth in the district, that's a valuable resource, and it's one that I would again say that the voters already actually approved. Even though, yes, I understand that there's a politicized process that we have to go to access those dollars, but it still is a significant source of revenue.
There are lots of districts who tie an increase to a bond just to take care of the new buildings that are coming on. We haven't had that process. And there are other districts, Logan's one, that they do a truth in taxation. And you can do it. There's nothing that says you can't. We have had the policy of waiting until we actually had to pull that trigger. There's been one other time, in the time that I've been here, that we did deliberately raise taxes even higher than that, because you do have authority to raise levies, and we did it for technology, and we did it for transportation. And there was one other area. Anyway, that money's still flowing to those departments. Transportation's a much better department because we did that. Technology is much better in this district because we did that. And you'll have to just wrestle with that one, as you go down the road.
I would expect that if our bond passes this year, that, well, regardless of what happens with the bond, that next year we'll have to visit that, because especially if our student growth rate is slowing, we'll need to recapture those funds as much as possible.
Would it be, I know, like you said, this is a busy time of year, but just for the sake of our own information as a board, would it be possible to actually do the arithmetic there and figure out what is being left off the table, just for the sake of knowing?
That's a simple calculation, so I could send that to you tomorrow. I was just really quickly looking up, and in tax year 2018, which would have been the 2018-19 school year, so we're talking roughly four and a half years ago, our tax rate value was $4.7 billion. So in less than 5 years, it's doubled. And our tax rate in that year, the 2018, was 007839, and this last year it was 005844. So it's gone down 2,000 points just from the process in Utah, where you only get the same revenue as you got the prior year.
I guess I would just say that, again, I understand you have to make political calculations, but, there are probably a lot of people that would argue, and I would actually be one of them, that, when we're legally allowed, to access those funds based on legislation that was passed, based on voter approval, that, given how strapped, the district always is, it's our responsibility to access those sources of revenue if we have, if we can legally. And so I'm just throwing that out there that I understand what the practice has been, over the last few decades, or the last couple of decades, I guess, since that law was passed. But, the growth that we've seen in the valley, especially in terms of property valuation over the past half a decade, has been unprecedented. It's crazy. And so, if we stick to that kind of schedule, I guess I'd say because of political expediency, we're leaving a lot of revenue off the table. So I'm just throwing that out there,
we can
just
get
because it's something we should consider.
We can get you that figure easy. The one thing you need to remember also, though, we do get to tap into the new value of property. It's you get the same dollar amount on the old value, but you do get to capture. So it's not that all of it's being left on the table. It's just you could raise that rate.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a topic for tonight, because our time's been spent. But I am intrigued by the prospect of fixing, freezing that rate. I'm wondering. We don't need to talk about it tonight, but I'm just wondering what that process entails and how other boards have done it. Because in a time of rapid valuation growth, we may want to consider something like that so that we don't have to, repeatedly pay a political cost for doing what the voters have already approved, basically.
Well, the process just correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but the process just requires that we have a truth in taxation hearing every year. That's what Logan does. They have to just keep their rate the same.
Yeah. So that's basically what they do. They say, we're going to freeze the rate, which means that we have an annual meeting.
Right.
Yeah. You have to propose that.
Yeah.
That is interesting, because that is politically difficult.
It is.
Because people feel like they're having their taxes raised every year.
Which is why, for how many years has USBA, USSA, and the business administrators petitioned the legislature to freeze the rate at the state level, so that we don't have to carry that every year.
Right.
You have to also understand that this is, if you listen and go to any of the Taxpayer Association meetings, this is their big hammer and nail, that they say that every state in the union would be better off if you had to have truth in taxation, because they can show that as soon as that went in, the increases in this state for property tax just almost came to a screeching halt, and they love it. They love that you have to have that meeting once a year. That's a tough nut to crack, but it's one that's worthy of going back to the well as many times as you need. See if you can get the legislature to go away from that.
But
as we can show the justification behind it too, I think it's a story you can tell. It's just going to take some work to do that.
well, and as I have visited with several Logan school board members, they don't even have people who show up at their truth in taxation meetings anymore, because they do have them every year.
So it can kind of go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. But it just seems like a shame to forfeit such a huge pile of revenue, for just that reason. But you're right, Superintendent. This year it's all tangled up with a potential bond as well.
Yeah. When the state froze the state rate for 5 years, and we automatically got that increase across the state, they got beat up bad in the legislature for doing that, because it allowed property taxes to go up. But they did it, and it helped. And there are times when you just say, yeah, it's worth it. Go for it. But you also have to work it in with bond issues.
The other consideration I was going to add is where we're in the position of we get board and voted local funding from the state each year. If we increase our property taxes in those two levies, that's essentially a direct amount of funding that we won't get from the state. So there's a little nuance in there, but you could almost call it a one-for-one trade-off. But in for example, our capital levy, that's not the case. If we went down that road, I think we'd want to evaluate how we use each of our levies and make that decision with that in mind.
So the collateral damage, what would the trade-off be you're saying?
Well, there are some
just that we'd gain money from local property taxes, but then we'd lose money from the state. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Jared. And we look forward to several other budget updates, understanding that they are very momentary in their accuracy.
Yeah, and thank you, because it's obviously so complex. So your expertise is really invaluable in weighing all of these different issues.
Someone I used to work with said that budgeting is like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. And I've thought that's pretty accurate. We do our best.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. Any board member reports? When I opened that in board docs, it says board appreciation assignment, see attached, but I don't see any attachments. And Kathy's not here to tell us what we're supposed to be doing. So I guess we'll wait until she is.
It's been on there for the last few meetings too, so.
Yeah. Okay, board president report. I included for each of you, just for your information, the amount that we pay to USBA in the form of dues. Just for your information, the amount per student has not changed in 30 to 35 years. So
that's due to some great entrepreneurship of the people who run that.
Yeah,
office.
Richard has done an exceptional job creating sister companies to USBA that like risk management and health insurance, those types of things that that bring in income to USBA as a whole, so that so that the school districts don't carry a heavier dues burden to participate in USBA. But so that's for your information. I just wanted to make sure you all knew that that's happening and it's been paid. Superintendent.
Just real quick. I started working with board members in 1987 in a small town called Dayton, Idaho. I have been gone around this district telling teachers that there isn't a better group of people I'd rather gone through life with than teachers. But I also want you to know, as board members, there's not a bone in me that wants to say anything other than how grateful I am that the people, I don't like to call them bosses. I hate the term boss. I don't think it has a very good connotation, but the people that have been over me and guided me and helped me in the leadership role of districts have been board members, and I can't think of a better group of people I would rather have had over me than the board members that I've been privileged to work with. So just thank you very much. It's been a wonderful experience. We've seen this not so calm. That happens when you work with the public, and it happens when you work with personnel. But I sincerely wanted tonight to be a night when I could express appreciation for all those parents out there for your time and energy that you put in to being a board member. And if the picture of Utah State doesn't reflect you and how you remember this valley, then I will make sure you get one of the others that was painted during the school year. But this is the one that he decided probably would be something that would be a good memory for most of you. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing that we are at the end of our agenda, we will adjourn.